Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very safe and well out there. Thank you for joining us as Tottenham Hotspur go to the top of the Premier League ahead of this international break, believe it or not. Tottenham Hotspur, top of the Premier League. Delighted to have three esteemed guests joining me to look back at Tottenham Hotspur's win against Watford. Delighted to firstly have up the wonderful Rob White joins us, of course, the son of the legend John White and, of course, a member also of the Tottenham Hotspur Trust. Rob, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, great. Nice to be on. Thank you.
Oh, pleasure to have you. And I also got the wonderful James Dickens back on the Last Word on Spurs. James, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Back from the game and thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, good to be back.
Fantastic. It's actually a nice feeling coming back from Tottenham, actually enjoying it, which hasn't been said too often over the course of the last 18, 24 months. And also delighted to have back on the show, returning guest as well, the wonderful Leon Emirali joins us. Leon, how are you?
I'm good, Ricky. I've just been staring at the league table for the past couple of hours since the game ended. So all good.
Did you manage to find the bottom of it, Leon, as well?
I was looking at that just as much as I was looking at the top, Ricky.
I bet you was. It's a strain down there for the neck, I tell you, for some of those trying to find the bottom of the league table. You will find it eventually if you just keep on heading down. But we're here to discuss Spurs winning again by 1-0, 3 straight victories in the Premier League under Nuno Espirito Santo as we climb to the top of the early Premier League table. Rob, let's start with you. Spurs top of the Premier League, yet to concede a goal. Not a bad start for Nuno Espirito Santo. What have you made of it?
I was willing to be underwhelmed by the whole thing, and I'm still, I'm slightly underwhelmed. But how can we complain at 3 games, 3 goals, 3 clean sheets, 9 points? I think we'll probably talk quite a bit about it in this program, but there's still obviously major issues on the style of football at the moment. I think it's all good from my perspective. From what I can judge at the moment, I don't want to be too soon. I'm one who gives people probably too much time. So we'll see.
It's going to be a very, very interesting season ahead. I must say also, guys out there, of course, if you're listening to the show, you can find us on Audio Boom and you can find us on iTunes across a range of different major audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word On Spurs, Facebook and Instagram too, and, of course, live on YouTube as well. James, let's come round to you. That's 4 league wins for Tottenham. I say 4 league wins. I should say there was 4 league wins under Spurs with Jose Mourinho 1-0. That's 3 wins already for Tottenham under Nuno Espirito Santo. Very, very early days. James, I know you're a man that loves Spurs to play with style, swagger, swashbuckling football. So what have you made of it so far?
Firstly, I think it's quite interesting that outside of yourself, if you look at the hairlines of the guests on this podcast, you can tell we're definitely Spurs fans. It's a stressful business. I've gone for the Nuno tribute beard today. But I think...
That's going to be trending by the end of the season, I reckon, James.
I hope so. The style hasn't been great. I think after the City game, everyone understood that. The Wolves game wasn't great, and that was a bit of a robbery. Today was better. There's still big problems with the midfield, which I'm sure we'll get into in more depth, but. Nuno mentioned after the game that he wasn't happy with the style either, so I think that's something that's gonna come with changing formation, or certainly changing the types of personnel that we use, and obviously being top of the league will get rid of some pressure and we can start playing with a bit more freedom, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to come on to that from a psychological perspective, sure, in terms of obviously Spurs reaching the top very, very early on. Leon, to be fair, listen, let's be honest, it wasn't a classic, but yet I felt another organised, efficient display from Spurs. They're looking like a coherent unit again, which I can't believe I'm sitting here believing and even saying, to be honest with you, on the back of what's been a really tough last 18 months. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to say that we need a better midfield. I think we all know that going into the final days of this summer transfer window, but we are still only 3 games in to the Premier League season. Therefore, has it surprised you already just how quickly some of the players have adapted to Nuno? We know there's a brand of football that we all want to see Spurs play. We're hoping that's going to come. But what have you personally made of the way Spurs have started the season under him?
I think we've looked really professional. I think we've looked composed and controlled, which the results would suggest. I think the clear areas where we've improved a lot is is the defence, is the centre of defence with Sanchez and Dyer playing like two different players, really. I mean, they did look strong and have looked strong. And yeah, I think I see a comment there saying about Dele, who also I think adapted his game. He's a different type of midfielder now. He's not playing that sort of shadow striker type of role, playing off the strikers. He's playing as a shuttling midfielder in a way, and I think it suits him. He did give the ball away a couple of times, and that he's always got that in his game. But I think we're looking good. It's we were so bad at the end of last season that we have to get points on the board, and I do hope that we adapt the way we play to be slightly more aesthetically pleasing and more like the traditional Spurs that we know and love. But no, I'm happy. I think it's looking good.
Rob, I want to come back round to you because, I mean, at the moment we are seeing it out, and it's been another good performance. I'm certainly saying it's not dazzling, but it's effective, isn't it? It's no one of colour. There's no costly errors at the moment, which is weird to say as a Spurs fan. Again, another clean sheet. Skipping Højbjerg been like a wall so far in front of that back four this season. And it does seem that already, Sanchez and Dyer seemed a lot more calm in their roles. Again, I would imagine it does feel Nuno's given those guys a sense of real confidence. And what have you made, I want to ask you, Rob, for you from a Nuno factor? Because we've gone, as we know before this, 72 days without a manager. He knew he wasn't the first choice. And we spoke to so many candidates. Arguably, he was one of them in amongst the process that Spurs considered, then went back to. How do you feel he's adapted to the role? When you also take into account that the poster boy wanted away from the football club, and now we've got him back. And also, the most expensive club record player wants away. He's having to deal with all of this behind the scenes. How do you think he's coped with it all?
I think he's coped with it very well, and I think he's simplified a lot of their roles probably at the moment. And I think it really helps that he's got, he's had a settled side for one thing. And I think that was one aspect of Mourinho, that he would chop and change, especially the back line. So nobody, quite often, people didn't seem to know what they were doing. So yeah, I think he's just simplified it. And I was just sitting there today thinking, I assume he's planned for Kane to go. That was really what he's thought. And now he's got almost the opposite, where he's now got to get Kane. Obviously, Kane starts beyond doubt. So you sort of wonder how then he manages Dele, how he manages Lucas. I thought it was a weird thing today, because if he'd picked Bergwijn, people would have said you should have started Lucas or the other way around. So I think he's just doing. It seems to be he's doing very simple things, and people know their roles at the moment. So yeah, I think he's done really, really well. And we all know it's a tricky gig.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you'd probably say, Rob, one of the most trickiest gigs there is as a gig. If Tottenham would be a gig, right?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. There's stuff to deal with on the pitch, stuff to deal with off the pitch, and I think the whole. We all know that we can see that we're crying out for an Ndombele, somebody in midfield. But actually, I think he's bypassing that quite well at the moment. But we'll see where it goes soon.
Yeah, agree. Oh, actually, a statement on the screen there coming around to you, James. Scott Shear there, 5 points better off than this time last season. Onus is now on the ball to help Nuno going into the rest of the season with the right transfers. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, I think this is less. He does. We do need to get some players in. I mean, I know Sar's come in last week, and I've seen little bits of him, and he's a great looking prospect. But obviously, he's gone back on loan to Metz. So there's obviously they spent some money that I think they were banking on Kane going, and then we're going to use some of that. So I guess the targets have changed. But there are some issues. I mean, even if you look at today, you're right. Skip and Højbjerg were a wall. But progressing the ball forward was kind of non-existent, really. And what was actually happening was that we were pushing both fullbacks on. I mean, Tanganga, I don't think he's played that high in his whole career. And the problem you have then is that the whole point was that he was supposed to tuck inside, and we'd have a back three, and then Reguilón was playing. If they're both going forward, which is fine, if you've got Højbjerg and Skip there, he's just not suited to that role. And I think we've long discovered that Matt Doherty's not good enough. So I think actually we needed, God forbid saying it, but I think Aurier would have been a lot more effective in that role today. That's nothing against Tanganga. It's just his skill set isn't suited. He was getting into a lot of crossing positions and overhitting them, and he stubbed his toe on one occasion. And it's understandable, but it's not it's not ideal. And then it's that I think the centre midfield is where we really need to look, because I'm a big Giovanni Lo Celso fan, but he's not that incisive. I think he will play on the periphery. He's probably a good person to swap in and out for Dele. How do you get something more in that midfield? You're going to have to bring someone like Ndombele in, I think, longer term, or find a way of playing through that. I mean, there's Winks, but I think he's a good squad player, but hanging your hat on him over the season isn't going to work. You need, like, we were just pinging a ball from left to right and left to right and left to right, and not actually breaking them down for long periods. And even the goal was well hit, but it was fortuitous that it went in the way it did. So I think there needs to be someone who can play that final ball. And actually, just finally, the wingers are an issue, because I think our two best wingers at the moment are Bergwijn and Son, but they're both best playing from the left. I thought Son was poor from the right today. And Lucas played really well when he came on and is good at playing from the right, but I don't think he's the answer.
Yep.
And then when do you bring Brian in? Does he play wide? Does he play as an 8? Can he be that one progressing it like he did against Pacos in the week? There's so many questions, but I think there are some answers in the squad, but a couple of players coming in would be helpful. But again, there's no point fixing the midfield if Ndombele is going to be there for it at least until January. So it's difficult.
Yeah, and also your question, I mean, by the fact he hasn't included Ndombele so far, tells you obviously that at the moment he doesn't feel that he's committed to the squad. And again, I feel like he's only going to bring in Ndombele in if he feels he's got the right mindset. I think that's the one thing we've seen with Nuno so far, that he will not bring players in that he doesn't feel are going to be committed and to fight for the shirt. And, Ndombele, we're going to come on to Ndombele, because for me, I've always backed him. He's probably been one of the most exciting footballers to watch on the eye. And it's just that shame that if only we had the attitude to go with the ability, my God, what a player we'd have. But Leon, to come around to you, we've got many questions today in terms of the style of football. But I have to say that Spurs, the only team with a 100% record after 3 games so far. Nuno is also the first manager to win his first 3 league games since Arthur Rowe back in 1949. And that just tells you, I mean, I know Robbie, you're chuckling away there. It just shows you that really, it's a feat that hasn't been achieved by many managers. And Spurs have had many, many managers, as we know, since Arthur Rowe, bless him. Leon, question here. I'm going to go to our listener questions that we've had. This is from Darren at Darren Blake 84, who says, would you guys be happy playing like this and getting results, even narrow wins, throughout the rest of this season? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a question that we were asking ourselves last season, wasn't it, with Mourinho? Would we be willing to see this sort of style of football that perhaps isn't what we want to see, but delivers the results? Yeah, look, as a Spurs fan, I don't want to be seeing us playing 1-0s all the way. I think we've got more in our locker. I think we can be more exciting. But I want results. I do want results. I haven't got the luxury to say I want wins and I want them played well. This isn't Real Madrid or Barcelona. We need to be realistic, and I think that if we can set the foundation where we have a good amount of points on the board, and then as the pressure starts easing on those players, perhaps they start to loosen up a bit. Perhaps a few more players come in and can make us a bit more exciting. Yeah, look, for me, I want top 4, and I want to win a cup this season. That's what I'm after, and I think we can potentially do that under Nuno. I think he's got it. But let's hope he's right. He did say this isn't the style of play. We're going to play better football, and I trust him.
Rob, I want to come back around to you. Comment on the screen there from Louis Graham, who says, don't understand the problem that everyone has with the football. Nuno has admitted that it's not exactly how he wants the team to set up, and the guys only had 3 games in the Prem and won them all. Patience. And I agree with that, Rob, because I think, like I said to you on the opening there, when you think about what he's had to deal with so far, like I said, Harry Kane, Tsungi and Ndombele not actually having so far, I think, any real signings to actually bring into the group. Of course, Romero, one to see, but we can see we're crying out for another creative midfielder. You could argue that we definitely need another striker to come in as well, because we can't rely on Harry Kane all season, and we know Heung-min Son is not a natural centre forward. Do you think to some degree at the moment, Rob, he is almost having one hand tied behind his back to some degree here with the squad that he's got to work with? Oh, sorry, Rob.
I'm muted. I'm unmuted. I agree, but I think that one of the things he's done really well, which we haven't talked about yet, is Skip's been brought in, which takes a lot of pressure off Højbjerg in midfield, so he's not getting overrun. I think I said, well, we were chatting at the start. when Mourinho came in, I was prepared to sell my soul to the devil for a season of 1-0 victories. That never happened, and I'm 3 games in. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with 9 points on the board, and I think he's done a lot better than I thought he would. I was underwhelmed with Nuno at the start, but I think he's doing okay.
James, let's come around to you, because I know, James, from your perspective, as I said earlier during the show, is a case where we do want to see an attacking brand of football. And, there'll be some saying, we've got Benno the Id who says, can't complain, 3 wins out of 3, but should we be concerned we're not being as clinical to make the scorelines more comfortable? I think that's one point actually Nuno picked up on his post-match press conference, that from a finishing perspective, we know we can't rely on 1-0 all season. Do you want to see us, like I say, James, become more clinical in that final third?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be silly if I didn't. I think. I think the other argument is to be honest, is a bit spurious, because like you can be quite happy with where we are at the moment, but that doesn't mean that you can't comment on how that could be improved. And I think to some, and I include myself in that, and from what Rob has said, him as well, that Spurs is about a certain way of playing. Otherwise, I could go and support anyone. And so, as long as, and I was quite concerned, but what Nuno has said has certainly reassured me that he's looking to kind of put that right. So, as long as we are working towards this goal of playing this nice football, then that's great. And if we're winning 1-0 along the way, then fantastic. But the other part of this, which is probably, and I think I was fairly clear on this last time, I'm much more inclined to take these 1-0 victories under someone who is has got such a nice beard and is so likable, and he's just a really nice bloke to have running the club, and rather than an objectionable person, misanthrope like Mourinho, not just how he was at Spurs, but just through his whole career. I just think he's an awful human being, to be honest. Outside of a football manager, the Eva Canero stuff never sat well with me. That whole thing is awful. And so
I could never tell. I could never tell you didn't like him, James.
I'm trying to hide my light under a bushel, but I think it might have slipped out. But yeah, like I never wanted him there. I never gave him a chance, and I was so glad when he left. And Nuno's great. He was never a first choice, but I really like him, and so far so good. And he's working towards what we want to be. So he'll get time for sure.
Yeah, we're going to come on to the start 11 shortly, but I do want to ask you that as well, Leon. You don't think from a Nuno perspective, there's just something very likable about him, isn't there? He's a very humble human being, comes across ever so well with the cameras, with the players, and with the supporters. And it's almost like we do need that type of manager again to almost bring that togetherness, almost again a Poch type figure. I know whenever I say Poch, people start screaming, going, "Oh, on a second, but Poch didn't win anything." And I acknowledge the fact Poch didn't win anything, but we do need to go back to that kind of manager, I think, that's going to basically bring the fans together. We know there's an ongoing situation with the board at the moment, which, again, is still not ideal. There's still fractions in terms of, some are for, some are against. They could probably say there's a bigger percentage now that are against the board. And you do need that man, I think, in the middle that is going to reconnect fans to the group of players, to a manager. I think Nuno can do that. What do you think? Do you think he's the man to at least bring us back together as supporters?
Yeah, I think so, Ricky. I really like him. I like his manner. What I disliked about Mourinho was I always felt that he thought the job was beneath him, and I think with Nuno, he's grateful for the opportunity to go from Wolves to Spurs to step up, and I think we need that kind of manager at Spurs. We do better when we've got those kinds of managers. Poch is a great example coming from Southampton, and I really like the way that he talks to the media. I know it's not everything, but I think the players will be listening to his interviews, hearing what he says, and be feeling motivated by it. Whereas under Mourinho, you just think, oh, blimey, the manager's given me a hard time yet again. How does that make you feel? And I know there was one report, I think it was in the Sun, who said, oh, the players are annoyed at Nuno, he's grumpy or whatever.
Yeah.
I just can't see it. It didn't ring true to me. It doesn't ring true to me.
If it's from the Sun, Leon, it's got to be bang on true. You can't be ever.
Hell yeah, I mean, who am I to question the Sun? But I do think that he seems to have got the players working harder for him. They look more committed. They look more interested. They look more engaged. And it's a breath of fresh air, to be honest. So I really like the guy.
Yeah, totally agree. Really do. It's early days, of course, but who are us Spurs fans to not try and get too carried away? Rob, want to come back around to you. Team news came out, of course. We saw Harry Kane start in front of Lucas Moura. Where have we seen that happen before? Of course, that famous Champions League final. Nuno there. We saw Sissoko named as part of the Watford team, which I think took a lot of Spurs. I mean, I think the Spurs media by surprise because there was questions as to whether that deal would have been done in time. But of course, it seemed that it was. Danny Rose back on the bench for Watford. As he made a return to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But pretty much, yeah, that was it. The only real change at the side. He's keeping, to be fair, Rob, and I know it's early days, quite a consistent lineup at the moment. Was there any surprises for you in terms of that selection this afternoon?
No, I think once Kane decided he was going to stay, then he's got to start Kane. I think it could destabilise the rest of the team, perhaps. And there's a point where Lucas Moura starts thinking, actually, what have I got to do to keep in the side? Because I think I thought he played really well. I think he's a better. Well, when he came on, I think he's a better option for that long ball that we play. That he seems to be the only one that can get up high enough to get the long ball to nod it on. Aside from that, there's it just seems to be the same back four, the same midfield at the moment. I think it's great because we have got lucky in these in the 3 league games. Anyway, there's definitely the start of the game today. I thought we looked slightly dodgy at the back. Both wingers for Watford, I thought they were going to have a great afternoon. Actually, we seemed to get a hold of that quite quickly. So I don't really think he's got a lot. I think he's doing okay. I think there's not many options he can have. I've got to say. It was nice to see Sissoko back, and there was some really quite funny Sissoko moments, which made us realise, why he didn't actually get that well appreciated down at White Hart Lane. But I was an early adopter of Sissoko personally, and it was nice to see Danny Rose back. Just a shame he didn't get on the pitch, really.
That's true. That is very, very true. Now, in the early stages of the game, coming around to you, James, we saw Sissoko being edged out of play by Dele Alli. And he had the ball actually bolted into it looked like in anger, straight at Nuno Espirito Santo, just 6 yards away. It's actually an immediate apology by the Frenchman. I don't think he meant it, but the irony of the accuracy, James, for that moment, I bet you couldn't make it up.
Well, no, and knowing him, he definitely didn't mean it because there's no way he could have aimed that well anyway.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was nice to see him back. From what I can gather, speaking to some people in the Spurs media and at Spurs, there's something went on with the registration of Sissoko because they pretty much timed it so he wouldn't be registered in time. But it sounds like Watford registered him before they'd actually signed him, which is quite interesting. Because if the signing hadn't gone through, then he wouldn't have probably been able to play for us either because he's registered twice. But it was quite peculiar. But I mean, it didn't make much difference in the end. The one thing that we haven't, or maybe we just did touch on, but I think the thing that is really impressive is how these players seem to be improving, particularly players like Davinson Sanchez, who I think there wasn't a Spurs fan who thought that he had a future at the club. To be honest, they were obviously trying to use him to get Jules Koundé from Sevilla, which didn't come off, and he's obviously now going to go to Chelsea. But I thought he was brilliant. He wasn't just good; he was brilliant, and it's really interesting that we're talking about progressing the play, which will probably mean one of Skip and Højbjerg coming out of the team. And it's the old adage of having a blanket that either covers your feet or your head. And I think, obviously, we would, as the Right Said Fred tribute act comment would say, we probably need the head is more important. But I do think that it'd be interesting to see how the defence manages when one of those has to be taken out, one of those defensive midfielders. There are some players, and not players, there are some human beings who much prefer to be treated kindly and with kid gloves rather than it's carrot or stick, right? And I think Mourinho was just stick.
There's only one approach. That was was only one approach. Yeah.
And I think the whole thing with how he approached him, having said that he was a liability when he was playing for Ajax against Man United in the Europa League final, to then say it again to him when he joined, which we saw on All or Nothing.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in, I mean, I'm someone who manages people, and if you do that without knowing the character of the person,
that's true.
What do you expect? So, and I think it's been great. And I also hats off to Eric Dyer because I think not only is he playing very well, but I think he's a leader in there. And when you can see, this is the first game I've been to this season. I didn't go to a City game because I was away, but and you can see him, like, he was the one who went and talked to Brian when he came on because he speaks Spanish. He's obviously speaking to the Portuguese players or the Portuguese language players in their language. Like, I think he's really important as a person in the dressing room and on the pitch more than actually as a player. So I think those two have been really impressive, and they're going to have to be, because from what I can understand, Romero is going to be going away with Argentina, and he'll have to quarantine when he gets back, and he'll miss 2 games because of that. So they're going to have to keep going because Joe Rodon is persona non grata from what I can see. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're going to come on definitely to the players, and I think it's definite. You can see that from I would say, I think you mentioned it earlier, Leon, as well, that just from an effort perspective, I think you can definitely see that these players are buying more into his philosophy. I mean, you're going to question that again. Will they buy into it for the course of a season or 2? Or that's obviously another question that, we can try and answer and we'll see. But it's very, very early days, and he's made a great start. And, that start, like I say, for Spurs, it was a difficult first half, to be fair, Leon. And, we did get that break that we were after. It was a goal for Heung-min on a teasing free kick. Was a teasing free kick that curled all the way into the bottom corner. Static goalkeeping from the Watford keeper, Daniel Bachmann, who really just stood there in amazement as the ball left and hit the back of the net. But Leon, that's what we needed, wasn't it? Because it was a real frustrating first half. You could just feel, and I know as fans, that we're difficult at being patient, right? I think that's one thing in our locker as Spurs fans, that at home against a newly promoted team, you do want to see Spurs score early. You want to feel a bit more of a reassurance and belief that we are going to take the game to the opposition. Therefore, how much of it was a relief that Spurs got that goal at the timing they did?
Yeah, I think it was the right timing, and as you say, I think going into the second half 0-0 would have been difficult, and the players might have grown frustrated, the crowd would have grown frustrated, but the timing was good. To be honest, I think we were lucky with that goal. 100% we were lucky with that goal, but we were also unlucky not to score a couple of others. I think that there were a couple of moments in the second half, in particular, where it was within inches of going in. I think there was a Dele Alli chance and a Harry Kane chance, if I remember. It was down the other end. I didn't quite on the best of views, but I thought that it came very close there, and I thought we also nearly scored a second just before we went into half time. So actually, I think the chances were there. I think it was about 8 shots on target, which isn't bad, and the timing of that was right. But look, we didn't do what we would have done under Mourinho, which is get the goal and then sit back sit back in our own area and defend for the rest of the game. So we still looked searching for other goals. That was encouraging to see. But we had that fitness, we had that solidity, we had that professionalism. It meant we could keep hold of the 1-0 win and take home the 3 points. And that was missing from last season. So it has to be an improvement. Yeah.
Rob, how impressed have you been with Heung-min Son? A player that, signed that new contract in the summer, where arguably I thought for Sonny, what was going on at the football club. Again, I was quite amazed that he would commit his future for that long to the club. Bearing in mind that I think he must have had interest across the whole of Europe. I can't imagine he wouldn't have done. So therefore, I think he relished the last, I would say, 6 to 7 weeks with the Kane speculation of really enjoying stepping up, being that main man, scoring that big goal against Man City. I think he actually enjoyed having that weight of his shoulders. And I think now I think he's probably, behind Lloris, he's now one of the oldest players in the Spurs squad, which is quite remarkable when you think of how much, we've had that transition now from moving players on, and Heung-min Son is one of the oldest. How impressed have you been with him, Rob?
I've been impressed. Yeah, was it 6 years this week that he's been at the club, I think, perhaps?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which I was quite surprised at, really. It doesn't feel that long. Probably feels a lot longer to him. But I also think from a pure cynical marketing point of view, I think it's money well spent to keep him at the club from an advertiser sponsor's point of view. Definitely keep that Asia bubble, keep it going, basically. But yeah, I think he's been good. And he got injured, didn't he? Pulled something in the warm up, I think, last week against Wolves, and was obviously taken off. He got taken off early there, which was good. But yeah, I think he's been great. I mean, well, what else can he do at the moment? And I think previously he's probably been a bit responsible of just trying a bit too much, really. And now it seems to be he just seems to be playing a bit more within himself, and is probably becoming a better player because of that, I think. Yeah. So It's good. It's all good with Son.
Yeah, I mean, James, I want to ask you about Son, because I think one of the questions that always was coming with Son, especially last season, is, yeah, he's great, Son, but he's not world-class. And there's some out there that do think Son is world-class. For you, what does it take, James, for Son to be recognised at that world-class level? Is he already in your eyes?
As someone who until very recently worked in football journalism, I've really got no idea what world-class means. Like, world-class to some is one thing, and I mean, the guy scoring 15 to 20 goals every season. He's not a striker. I know he's been playing as one, but for a little while. I think he's a fantastic player. I'm not really sure whether it matters how we classify him. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine on Friday, and I'm absolutely flabbergasted that he's still at the club. I don't. Honestly, it's great.
Do you mean in terms of the last summer, or you just mean generally in terms of where his career is going? You think
no? I just think.
Perspective?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at I think it's probably because of, I think, the timing potentially. But if you look at, like, I think he's a better player than Eden Hazard, and he's very rarely injured. Like, there's transfers like that have happened. You've obviously got the likes of Coutinho and Ndombele who've gone to Barcelona for 100 million plus figures. He's better than those players. He's like Leroy Sané. He's gone to Bayern Munich. He's better than him, and he speaks German because he played there. I mean, there's the marketing side that Rob mentioned, but even if you didn't take any of that into account, he speaks German, so he could have gone there. You know, I think he works hard. He never complains. He's always fit. He scores goals. He sets up goals. He was taking all our dead balls now. I think his work ethic is incredible. He's a very good player. I mean, like every player, he's got limitations, but I think his limitations tie in really nicely with Harry Kane's. He's very direct and he runs all the time. He presses all the time, possibly sometimes too much. But Harry Kane is more static, and they work so well together. They understand each other's game. I think he's fantastic to have at the club, and long may it continue, to be honest. And the one thing I would say is they need to stop playing him on the right wing, because I think it negates his main strength, which is coming inside and shooting. Yeah. Because essentially what he does is he either come inside or shoot, or slips a ball into Harry Kane. And if he's playing on the right, the slipping, the coming inside and shooting bit's gone. So, and his crossing isn't incredible. So I just think it takes a big part away from his game.
Yeah. Leon, I mean, from a leadership perspective, and just the guy that he's turned into now, he has becoming, I mean, family, if he wasn't already, he's now a real fan's favourite, isn't he, Son? And I think he's one of those players now that you look at with such joy, such pride that he's representing the football club. And he just loves the game, plays with a smile. It's something you want to see from a player. And the dedication he's shown for Tottenham, the loyalty he's shown for Tottenham. It's a player like that you just want to hope and believe that, you know, that's what we want to win the trophies for, isn't it? That's the kind of player that you think, he's been at Spurs, like Robert said, for 6 years, 6 seasons. That's the kind of guy we want to be winning trophies for. A player like him that's given so much to the shirt already.
Oh, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. I love him. I think he's a fantastic player technically. You know, I think he is world class, to use that annoying term, but I think he's there, and I think that as you say, he's just given everything for the club. He had a bit of a slow start, didn't he, when he first joined? It took him a little while to adjust, but it is a step up from the Bundesliga, so that's normal. But where he is now, a really good, solid player. I was sat next to a Korean chap today who had a South Korean flag. And you know, Son was I saw the flags around the stadium. Son was waving at them, smiling at them whenever he saw them, and I just thought that's such a nice touch. He's clearly, it means a lot to him that those players, those supporters are there at the stadium for him, and he's got a great rapport with all fans. And I think, I hope he sees out his career with the club, and I hope we can lift some trophies with him as an integral part of that.
Amen to that. Well, guys, for our listeners on audio, we are going to go for a very short break. Take you into this break, you're going to hear from Nuno Espirito Santo, who is reacting to Tottenham Hotspur being top of the Premier League. I can't quite believe it myself. I'm even getting choked up. And like I say, for our listeners on audio, when we return, of course, we'll be discussing the player ratings from today and our thoughts and ahead of the international break and what Nuno's got to come for our watching audience on YouTube, and thank you so much for joining us here. We're going to go straight into that right now. We're going to start coming back around to you, Rob, about Japhet Tanganga. Now, we're not expecting, Rob, any movement of Japhet in the next couple of days. We would expect him to be remaining with the club past the summer transfer window. Today, I think he did really well early on to reach a Højbjerg pass that inevitably was turned into a signing cross for Bergwijn and was shot in 15 minutes. He was then denied himself soon after. He tried to scramble a loose ball towards only the goal for the keeper to save. But what have you made of him, Rob, so far, Tanganga, this season? I think there's always been the element that if we can keep him fit, this has been the key. If we can keep him fit, there's a really good player in there. Do you think he just needs that one season of consistent football for us to see the player that he can eventually become in a Tottenham shirt?
Yeah, definitely. I think with most things in life, you just need a bit of self-belief, really. And I think that he's got all the attributes. I think today it was highlighted that his crossing, it wasn't the best. So that's obviously something that he really does need to work on. But yeah, defensively, he's really good. He had a shaky spell, the Wolves game last week. He was shaky at the start of the game today. But yeah, I think he's very solid. He seems to, again, back to Nuno, he seems to know his role very well in this team. Yeah, so I think hopefully he'll stay at the club and he'll progress under Nuno, definitely.
Leon, I think what's clear so far with Nuno is that he does seem to give each player a clear methodology in terms of what is expected of them in terms of the game. Therefore, at the end of a match, there can be no confusion at all as to why they might not be playing the following week. Do you feel that with Japhet, that's almost benefiting him now because he does understand the role he's being asked to by Nuno, and therefore we are seeing these confident performances? I mean, like Rob said last week, that Wolves game was a real test for him up against someone like Adama Traore. We're not sure he's going to do as fans, so let alone Japhet. I think it's really, really tough, but he's only going to get that experience by playing games, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, and I'm glad that he's getting a good run in the team. And I know there was talk of him potentially going on loan somewhere, and I'm glad we didn't do that because I think there'll be a lot of opportunities for him this season, whether or not we sign another right back or not. I think he'll be playing a fair bit, and that's what he needs. You know, he's looking a lot more confident as each game goes on, and I think that run in the team is just doing him the world of good. And yes, he has got limitations. He's not the marauding attacking fullback with a great final product. We know that, and hopefully we get the balance with Reguilón on the left, who is a bit more along those lines. But ultimately, yeah, I think Tanganga needs to stay at the club, and I think he'll have a good season.
What about that question on the screen there, James? That's from DVV, who says Japhet is a top talent, but not the answer to our right back problem. Do you agree with that?
It depends. I guess it depends what the question is. I've seen him play for the 23s and the 18s, and I think he's a centre half basically. I think long term he's going to be a centre half, and you can see when he's in the final third that he's a fish out of water's harsh, but he's not as proficient as he could be. Now, if we're going to play a system where that never happens, then fine. I think he's a great right-sided defensive central defender. I think we just need potentially to have another option there that is a very attacking right back. I'd like to think that long term he can be a right back, but I think first and foremost he needs to play, and I think he's the best right back we've got at the club. Probably. Well, I mean, Aurier was okay last season, I think. So
yeah,
I've got no issue with him, but he obviously wants to leave. So I think Tanganga's going to play, and I think he'll get better going forward. But I think long term, we should be looking at other options. I mean,
what about that on the screen there, James? I mean, it's a great point because it shows that even though Doherty's at the club, Nuno doesn't have loyalties for any certain players. He could have very easily been tempted at the start of the season to having that relationship there with Doherty to put him in, but he hasn't done. Has that surprised you at all, James?
Not really, because I think with the system we're playing, it just doesn't suit Doherty. I mean, he's been playing in the Conference League as a right wing back, which suits him. But I think playing in a flat back four just doesn't really get the best out of him. So I think he's obviously been very impressed with Tanganga because it was widely he'd agreed that loan, or the club had agreed the loan to Galatasaray, which I think after talking with Nuno, Tanganga's turned down, and now he's obviously playing, which is great. I think for this season, have him as a rotation right back. What we really need to get to is a situation that we had with Walker and Trippier, where you just didn't know who was going to play, and they kept both of each other on their toes. And I think that's the best way to. Yeah, I mean, I think this one that's on the screen now from Dan says it all. I think he's really important. But I think going back to what we said before, I think if you take a defensive midfielder out and you put in a flying right back, you really expose that defence, and you need to be really confident in them before you do that. But it would be nice to have an option because he can't play every week. So, and I think Doherty's not the answer, is he?
Yeah. Rob, if I was to say to you at the start of the season that we're going to have Eric Dyer, Davinson Sanchez starting the first 3 Premier League games, and out of those first 3, we're going to win them all, and we're going to have 3 clean sheets, would you have thought I'm going crazy?
I would have thought you were going crazy, but we didn't have much other option, did we? And that's part of the problem, or part of the solution. Maybe that's the solution rather than the problem. Maybe we're looking at it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really pleased actually for Eric Dyer, because I thought he'd lost his way last season. In fact, we were talking when we were back in the stadium today, and one of the guys, it was his first game back. And we were talking about the last game, I think, was Leipzig, but the game before that might have been Norwich at home, where Dyer went into the stand. And, that was
that feels that long time ago now.
It does. And the guy said he thought maybe that was the last he'd ever see of Eric Dyer at Tottenham. And, it's nice that it's transformed for him. And it's good that, again, Sanchez and him, I don't know whether they've been working really hard in the summer. I'm not sure what's happened, but it's coming to fruition. Actually, it's great, looking good.
Yeah, I mean, Leon, we'll come around to you on this. It's interesting because again with Dyer and Sanchez, I think we all know that at some point Romero is going to get a regular run of games. The guy we spent a lot of money on. There's ability there. We can see that he likes coming out from the back, and I think the only thing he'll need to be careful of is tempering that a little bit when it comes to some of the challenges. I think that's the only thing I will say at the moment with Romero. It's very, very early days. He's going to need the games to adapt. Would you still be confident, Leon, after this international break to carry on playing Dyer and Sanchez together as a partnership?
I don't think at the minute there's a justification to drop them. I think they've both been brilliant. They've clearly built up a level of rapport between the two of them, and I saw them talking constantly to one another throughout the game today. Romero, I know it's only 2 games. He's not looked great against Pacos the 2 times that he played. I think he got. Concentration doesn't seem to be there at the minute. And I don't know whether that's because it's a new club, it's new surroundings, or whatever it might be, and it takes a little while to adapt, or it's a language barrier, whatever it might be, I don't know. But Romero's not looked brilliant. We'll see how he plays for Argentina in the international break. And obviously he's a fantastic centre-back. I can't say he isn't. Well, I've not seen much of him myself, but I trust that if you're spending 50 million quid on a defender from Serie A, he's going to be okay. But I think he needs some time to adapt. I wouldn't drop Dyer and Sanchez for Crystal Palace on the return. I think he's. I think the two of them have got a good rapport. I think Romero will have his time, but at the minute it's looking good for the 2 that we've currently got.
Yeah, Tim on the screen there says Dyer and Sanchez has been better because we ain't sitting back all the time, inviting pressure on, which Jose encouraged. Less pressure, less mistakes. James actually got a listener question in here to read out. This is from Josh Pitcher, who says, with the form of Davinson and Dyer, do we shift to a 3 at the back to accommodate Romero after the international break? Is that something you'd like to see Spurs do?
I
think it's a really, really interesting comment, actually. So I have watched quite a bit of Romero, and he always played in a back 3 for Atalanta. Part of his game is, and I'm not sure whether this Leon can maybe qualify it, but if anyone thinks that him charging out into midfield and pressing their midfielders is going to stop, it's not. That's literally what his job was. There are 2 other centre halves who would stay there, 2 high up fullbacks, and he would charge out and he would get routinely booked. But also it meant that he's almost a kind of an auxiliary, and he's really good on the ball. He's almost an auxiliary midfielder at times. I mean, Chris has made a good point here. If Davinson Sanchez is supposed to be going to Brazil, which is on the red list, and obviously the 2 Argentine players are going to red list country as well. So Romero and Giovanni Lo Celso. So it's potential that, I mean, Rodon could come in. I think everyone's forgotten him. He is still around. I think he wasn't fit, but he may come in, or Tanganga may come in. But the other issue is if you go to 3 at the back, you can't play Tanganga as that right wing back long term, which again is interesting because potentially Traore could play there. That might be why they were trying to get him to play as a wing back.
Yeah.
Nandez, the guy we were looking at from Cagliari. Yeah. I watched him play in a game after we were linked with him. He played right wing back. I know he's linked as a centre midfielder, but he played right wing back. So I don't think that 3 at the back thing is dead by any stretch of the imagination. And it's also it is a different solution to this progressing the ball thing. If you play both fullbacks higher, play this 3 at the back, and when we've got the ball, Romero will almost play in midfield. Also, Dyer could do that potentially as well. Sanchez, not so much, obviously. But I think it does give a different solution. But then, you need to look at who's going to play the right. If Aurier's still there, he's Ivory Coast are playing Mozambique, which is on the red list, so he won't be able to play. So it's Doherty.
I think we might get a game. We might get a game at this rate, lads.
Yeah, I mean, I played an 11-a-side a couple of weeks ago. I'm definitely not up for this, to be honest, mate.
Well, I don't know. We might have to be.
My Achilles is giving me jit still, so yeah.
Oh dear! I must have a word actually with Sergio Reguilon. He got opportunity to go plenty forward today. Didn't do much with the ball when he did. And again, a player that I think again this season is feeling his way into a new system, a new coach, of course, in Nuno Espirito Santo. I think one of the things today, Rob, that has sparked heavy debate, as always with Spurs, is that midfield. And we know, of course, we've got this Ndombele situation that's rumbling on where Nuno is not picking the player, despite, as we understand, him being fit to play. This is more to do with an issue around his commitment to the club, which some Spurs fans will absolutely love. That, he wants to pick players that want to fight for the shirt and be there. There'll be some saying, well, hold on, if we're basing it on ability, he should be in the team. I mean, this is an interesting one here. Got a question in from John Berry who says, does the Watford game prove we are crying out for an Eriksen replacement? Thoughts?
Yeah, we are obviously crying out for an Eriksen replacement, but we're still... the results speak for themselves at the moment. And I think we go back to that thing of just in a new job, Nuno just wanting to get a good solid base and then build from that, which is understandable. I'm not sure. I heard what you said at the start about Ndombele, and I understand that. And yes, there's been, we've seen some great bits of skill from him, but I've also seen some of the laziest, most least professional sort of attitudes of any player that I've seen for quite a long time watching Spurs. And Jose couldn't do it. Poch couldn't do it. If Nuno can't do it, then, I'm not sure what the answer is and whether he's been given enough chances as it, and that's maybe why he's not, well, that's obviously why he's not in the starting lineup. I don't see anyone else at the club that can fill that role at the moment, whether Lo Celso possibly, I'm not sure. We definitely don't seem to have anybody with that sort of creative vision that can unlock. But whether we need it because at the moment we're playing with four forwards, aren't we, really? And then one or two drop back into the midfield. So at the moment it's working. So arguably, do we need long-term or short-term, do we need that Eriksen replacement? I don't think we do.
It's interesting. I mean, James, I love Robert. I'd probably disagree with him on that. I think we are definitely going to need someone between now and the deadline that's going to come in and definitely add to that squad in terms of that midfield creativity. Because although we've won these first 3 games, I'm just thinking for the rest of the season, if we're not also going to look at this second striker, which we know Adama Traore has been heavily linked with the term support striker. Bearing in mind, we had Carlos Vinicius last season, who we haven't obviously renewed his loan. And we've got, again, we say Heung-min Son, we know he's not a natural centre forward. Of course, there's Dane Scarlett, who at the moment is still very, very raw, of course. You look at midfield and, Glove says here, Goal 77 says, do you find it concerned that we lack a ball carrier through the middle of the pitch, someone to create either that lock-picking pass? You think Gio would be in there for some games like this? Do you have reservations, James, if we don't bring in that lock picker, that number? Well, I'd say it's more of a number 8, whatever you want to call it. That guy that is gonna give us that key to the midfield to allow us to really create some chances?
Concern is probably a bit strong. I think the reason we bought Ndombele is still there. His skill set, no one else has at the club. I'm not especially comfortable with the way he's spoken about his situation is spoken about in some quarters, because no one knows what's going on behind the scenes. There's not a lot of information coming out. He is funnily enough, he lives up the road, and I've seen him around, and he's clearly a very.
Can't you have a word then? Can't you have a word then, James?
Well, and I saw him during lockdown training on the common at the top of the road, and that ended up being in the paper, so probably doesn't want to see me anymore. But I think the way he is and his style, and he's a really young kid. He's immature. He's in a new country. I know he's been here a while now. And there's obviously some problem there. I don't know what it is, and I'm not prepared to speculate on what it is. What I do know is that he's the best central midfielder we've got at the club, and he's a record signing, and he's on 200 grand, and he's not playing. Now, if we get to this end of this transfer window and he's still here, we need to work out what to do, because I don't believe for a second that Levy isn't going to go to Nuno and say, look, this asset is here. If you bench him or keep him as he is now, he's a depreciating asset, and we're only going to get 15 million for him at the end of the season, and because of his wages. So they're going to have to do something to try and keep him playing, because I don't know what that is, whether that's playing in the Conference League or something. We need someone in that role. I don't think there's anyone out there that we can afford to buy without getting rid of Ndombele in the first place. So I think we're going to either have to get shot of him on a loss now, or play him till the end of the season and then sell him. It's all very well not like Harry Kane doesn't want to be here, but I don't think anyone will doubt his efforts. And I'm sure we can try and get something from Ndombele. We haven't replaced Eriksen, but we also haven't replaced Moussa Dembele. And I think some of the pressure is that Ndombele was being told to do both. And I think if you're going to play him, you just need to play him and not worry about how he's trained. Some people just don't train well. Don't play him, and just play him, and don't worry about his training, because otherwise he's just going to be a £60 million player, or I think it's 47 with add-ons, sitting on the bench, and that's no good for anyone. So I don't think we can buy anyone until he's gone, basically, because we're not made of money, are we?
No, we're not. And the thing is, I mean, I would say at the moment, we're recording this show, of course, on Sunday evening for those that listen to on their maybe commute tomorrow on their bank holiday Monday. As of this moment, there's been no public statement from Ndombele saying he wants to leave the club. We have to say that there hasn't been anything public come out. He's still been training as far as we understand, and he just hasn't been selected by Nuno Espirito Santo. But Leon, the case that, Skip today battled away very, very well in Sissoko, and you'd probably say he did have the upper hand before the Frenchman went off. Højbjerg again played some real incisive passes. He kept the tempo high in Spurs' transitions. Dele Alli involved in plenty of Spurs' attacking work. But I don't know what you think. I still feel for us that we're definitely going to need some more depth to this midfield. Someone that is going to pick a pass, someone that is going to unlock a defence. If we have got serious aspirations of trying to get back into a top four, where when you look at this, and we're going to come on to this a bit later in the show, but when you look at the likes of United bringing Ronaldo back, you look at Chelsea with Lukaku now, you look at City, that although they haven't got in their striker that they're looking for at the moment, they still are scoring goals for fun. Liverpool in the equation, that's four formidable sides above us. And you look at West Ham that are pressing as well, Everton that are coming under Benitez. For Spurs to really sustain an effort this season, do you feel the squad's going to need more? Isn't it depth between now and the end of this summer transfer window?
Yeah, I really do think we need to be a little bit busier in the transfer window, and hopefully things are starting to fall into place with a couple of outgoings before the incomings come around. But yeah, we do need some strength and depth. I think we've got the Conference Leagues playing now as well, so we do need a big squad, and I think that we've got an opportunity to bring in that creative midfielder. I think that's glaringly obvious, and I think Skip probably is the one that makes way for the games like today, where we could be a bit more expressive and we can push for a bit more. But I do think the Skip and Højbjerg partnership works well for games against perhaps the more attacking teams, the bigger teams. No, I think we need a right back as well. I think a right back needs to come in, and obviously the secondary backup striker. So I think that's at least 3 positions that we need to be investing in. And I think and Ndombele is going to be key to that, because if we've got him still at the club on £200,000 a week, I mean, potentially that's at least 2 very good players that we can bring in for that level of wage commitment. And if he doesn't go, then I do think we have to utilise him, because otherwise it's going to be a shame for us to have that talent sat on the bench and not working. And Lo Celso, I think he needs to be spoken about as well. I do think Lo Celso has got a lot more to give, and he may be a solution to some of those difficulties. Because I remember, I mean, it was Ndombele and Lo Celso brought in really as the Dembele and Eriksen replacements, and it hasn't clicked for whatever reason for either of them. It just hasn't clicked. And I think if we can get the best out of those 2 players, then I think there's no reason why we can't be kicking on, looking at top 4, looking at a cup win, because they're brilliant players. We need to make that work. And if it doesn't work, then we need to look at getting some strength and depth in those positions in particular.
Yeah, Rob, I want to come on and ask you about Dele Alli. It's interesting because some will feel that he's had a really good start to the season. Then there is that, again, a section of fans that just feel, nah, I'm not quite feeling this new Dele Alli role. Where are you, Rob, on Dele Alli? Do you think he deserves his place in the 11 so far? He's been a consistent member of the team so far under Nuno.
Yeah, I do. Can I go back to the Ndombele thing?
Please do.
I just did a flashback where you were talking, because there was that tokernly embarrassing bit in All or Nothing where doesn't Daniel Levy have a 1-to-1 with Ndombele?
Yeah.
Sorry, I've just had a real flashback to that. It was terrible stuff. Obviously, Daniel's.
It was horrendous, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. How did that make the cut?
I don't know. Incredible. So far as Dele goes, I'm really pleased for him. I think he's it's a different Dele at the moment, and I think Kane coming back might just affect him slightly. It might have a detrimental effect, just ego-wise, perhaps. But yeah, he's obviously fitter than he was. He's obviously more focused, or he seems to be more focused. Obviously we want him to do well. I don't know whether previously he was sort of caught between not quite knowing his role in the team, and maybe that is him to go to drop deeper into midfield and be a bit more creative. But there's times where he seems just to slow down too much and to be a little bit too casual and to be a little bit still. He's not as he's not as young as he was. So you think he should have developed a little bit more and just start to be a little bit more clinical, a little bit more ruthless. The chance he had today, second half, which Leon was at my end. I still don't know how he misses that, really. If it's Son or if it's Harry, although Harry missed from 2 inches.
Yeah. But, is that Rob? If that's a Dele of 3 seasons ago, is that in the back of the net?
Probably, yeah. And actually, when they were warming up at our end, he did this fantastic piece of skill where he basically, it was like a scissor kick with his wrong foot. And it looked like he hadn't thought about that at all. And it was just this beautiful piece of skill.
Yeah.
But that finish, the sort of hurried finish in the second half, I'm not sure. But hang on, what was the question there? I'm sorry, there was one on the screen.
We've got 2. We've got one for Dan here. Dan Lewis says, if Dele scores his chance today, nobody questions him. Learning a new position, working really hard for the team. Yeah, and
I thought actually it was quite telling at the end. Nuno went over to him and there was obviously a few words. It looked really encouraging what he was saying to him. So I think, Dele's there's real signs of really good improvement there. So let's hope that can keep on, really.
James, let's get your thoughts on Dele Alli. Jason McGovern there, obviously a regular on the Last Word On Spurs. He says if a new role for Dele, he needs to be judged on that role, not doing the new role, but judged against his old goal-scoring record. What do you make of that for you, James? Where are you on Dele Alli and his future at Tottenham?
Well, I'm a massive fan of Dele Alli. I do think that Jason, I get his point, but the problem is you have to work out not just him learning that new role, which is great, but also what is he best at, and how can he be most effective for Tottenham? And I'm not quite. I still believe that actually what what he did against Wolves, winning that penalty, is what he's best at. And him, I thought he worked incredibly hard. I thought he was really good. Him making tackles in the fullback area, I don't think is the best use of Dele Alli. He'll do a great job there, but I think you could probably get someone who's not got his skill set in the final third to do that job. The problem we've got, and I think without sounding like a broken record, is he will do that job until you can get him further up the pitch and get someone to pass the ball to him. We need someone to get it from Højbjerg or Skip to him, or to one of the wide players or Kane, and he breaks beyond them. I think that's that, and I think you can still do that. You can play a 4-3-3 without the ball and a 4-2-3-1 with him playing as a 10 when you've got the ball and have him breaking beyond Kane. I think it works well. I mean, he's regularly running over 10k a game. Every game he runs the most of any of our players, so he's got no issue getting up and down the field. But I think we need to look at the role he's playing, and is he the best? Is it making the best of him? I think he can probably, and I think if you had Eriksen, if you had Ndombele, if you had a functioning Ndombele, if you had X, Y, and Z, someone who can pass the ball in midfield and release it wide and then have him break, I think it could work. But I think going back to All or Nothing, you can tell he absolutely despised Mourinho. Like, just the way he looked at him, he got him nailed. And
he didn't like that meeting, did he? When he pulled him and he said to him, I'm not going to try and be your father because I'm not your father. You could just see Telly's he couldn't wait to get out of that. You couldn't wait to get, if you could see someone couldn't wait to get out of a meeting. I mean,
yeah, but I think
you could feel he wanted to.
But it also shows a massive lack of going back to, this isn't a digging out Mourinho, but when in Rome, I might as well go for it. But it shows a lack of research, right? And lack of information about these players. You go into a meeting, you should know that Dele Alli has fallen out with his father. The reason he's called Dele is because he doesn't like his surname, because he doesn't get on with his dad. He was, adopted by his friend's parents when he was young and lived with them. I'm not sure whether it was officially or unofficially adopted, but he lived with that family and not with his own family. And so to make these sort of comments is just insensitive and shows that, and I think Dele's a really interesting person. You can see why him and Eric Dyer are really close. Yeah. He's obviously judges people. He's a good judge of character. He's very, I think he's emotionally intelligent, not like a lot of footballers, or at least how they're perceived. Yeah. And I don't think he was ever going to work. I know he played well for the first few games under Mourinho, but I think Nuno, like with Sanchez and Dyer and these sorts of players, and Pochettino did as well. Yeah, he's really getting the best out of them and trying to understand them, and I think that's to the club's benefit. But it's also, having someone like that who's putting his arm around the players and trying to understand their mentalities. For me to have someone like that at the club is really positive. So I'm pleased with Dele, and I'm pleased with Nuno for the way he's treating him.
I'd totally agree on that. I want to just pick up on that, James. I do think, someone like Dele does need that arm around the shoulder time and I just think he needs that. I think you look at someone like Pochettino, that's exactly the kind of profile that works best for a Dele Alli. That's what gets the best out of Dele Alli, is that almost confidence to really instill in the player that I'm believing you, you're going to be in my team. And even when you're not playing well, I'm still going to pick you. And I think Dele, it's one of those things where, because of the nature of social media, we all know this, Twitter and whatever platform, you won't be able to please everybody. And there'll be some people that think you've had a great game. There'll be some people that you've had a poor game. And, ultimately the manager to keep backing you will give him that belief that he's part of his plans. And two players that do cause such diversity amongst the Spurs fan base, coming around to you, Leon, this is Steven Bergwijn, Lucas Moura. Bergwijn today saw a volley deflected over the crossbar early in the encounter. As with Kane, he had less success in the final third, but worked hard around the box, but couldn't do enough to stop Lucas or place him in the second half. Moura comes on, fired a shot across goal that the keeper pushed away soon after. Didn't have anything more to offer than Bergwijn in the end. Those two players, Leon, are they going to be good enough for Tottenham throughout the course of the season? Of course, Spurs been heavily linked with Adama Traore. Is he an upgrade of those two? Does he give you an excitement that he could be coming to the club before the end of this summer transfer window?
I think Traore would be an interesting proposition for the club, and I think he can play that wing back role as well, potentially, if that's the system that wanted to try. I don't think Moura or Bergwijn are are going to be the players that elevate us to the levels that we all aspire to be at. I don't think that sort of Champions League level regulars, but I do think they offer energy. I think they offer a bit of dynamism in a way that really is lacking of someone who's going to pick up the ball, run with it, shrug off a few defenders, and make some space. Personally, today I probably would have picked Mora over Bergwijn. I just think he's a bit busier than Bergwijn is, and can sort of scare players a little bit more. But having the two of them as an interchangeable option off the bench, I mean, when you see either of their numbers on 60 minutes and you're an opposing fullback or defender, you don't want to come up against either of them. But I do think Traore, does he offer enough difference from those two? I think that's similar. I think they're all much of a muchness. I think having three of those players in our squad would be unbalanced, to be honest. So unless one of them is going to leave, I wouldn't really be that enthused by Traore coming in. But having said that, it'd be great for FIFA.
That's a good point.
But
for that
beyond
pace,
that,
I tell you. Oh, for that pace.
That pace, yeah, exactly.
Oh,
just that'd be good fun. But no, I personally wouldn't be too excited by him coming if those two are still at the club. I think
Okay.
we don't need three players of that type.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, we still want to just discuss Nuno's start to the season, of course, as well. So just want to ask you, Harry Kane, he got a huge cheer from the crowd when his name was read out just before kickoff. And within a minute of the whistle, was sent tumbling into the box with nothing given. He did try to make things happen, but we were a little ruled in that opening 45 minutes. Some would say it's a bit of a quiet return for Kane on the back of obviously what was a decent midweek performance from him and cut the goals. Kane, you still in love with him, Rob? Is he still the same Harry Kane that you was in love with 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks ago before all this Harry Kane saga speculation?
Yeah, absolutely. How can you not be in love with the guy? I think he did look a bit rusty today. He looked a little bit out of sorts. He was responsible for quite a bad challenge. I think he got booked for that. But yeah, his work rate wasn't what we're used to seeing, I guess. But he's going to take a little bit of time. And no matter what we think, footballers, they're human beings, and they're affected by whether they are going to leave or whether they're not going to leave. We don't know the story, but all of that has to have an effect on on what's going on, in their lives, what's going on in their minds.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be unsettling for him for a little while, and we're still not sure whether he, who knows the full ins and outs of that story. But as far as I think, just from the crowds, I wasn't there on Thursday, but the reception today was great.
Yeah.
It must, as an opposition defence, you just think, oh God, we've got to face Harry Kane today. That makes Tottenham 10, 15, 20% better with him.
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased he's there. And I don't know how many goals he got to get to Greaves' record. Quite a few, I believe.
Quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah. He won't get there this season, but it's good. It's good that he's decided to stay.
Yeah, I mean, James, I'm going to ask you your opinion there on Harry Kane. Because I saw your face where Rob was talking there, has your opinion clouded or changed at all in the course of the last couple of months with Kane? Or, will you be back in love with him after this international break if he does score against Chelsea, Arsenal, and gets us into the top four? And hopefully, please God, we get a trophy in all this crazy season to come.
Yeah, I mean, I guess has my opinion of him changed? Not especially. Do I love him? Did I love him in the first place? I don't think I did. And I find my relationship with Harry Kane's a bit weird because I think he's an incredible player, and I'm so glad he's still here because there's no way we'd be able to find anyone like him who with his skill set, and he's brilliant. I've never got this. He's one of our own thing. I've never got it. There's been no indication. The amount of times he could have put out a press release, even if it was, or put out a statement or said something that he was he's never ever said he was a Spurs fan as a kid. Never. The only evidence we've got of who he supported as a kid, I think everyone's seen.
We'll leave that for another one.
Yeah, I again, he's a brilliant professional, and a wonderful footballer, and the best forward I've seen at Spurs, and I've been going for 35 years. But I never ever bought into this fact that he loved Spurs. He loves Spurs as much as anyone who's in a job that they really like. I don't think I find like even the press release afterwards, there was no contrition. It's very. I thought he dealt with the whole thing really, really badly. I think he could have got to the same point he is now, or even had the transfer. I think no one would have begrudged him moving.
Yeah.
And we've I think we've all been around when we've lost many good players. Probably none, and maybe Bale, none of as good as Harry Kane. But I think there are ways, and he really played it really badly. And I also find that Spurs, not all Spurs fans, but there's a lot of this. Well, we know he should be loyal, and he's Harry Kane, and he's one of our own because he's come through the academy, which I get. But Harry Winks is massively loyal. Was a Spurs season ticket holder as a kid.
Yeah.
Probably isn't good enough for us as a footballer. And everyone's giving him pelters, and like he's warming up, and I could hear people swearing. It's like, I think it's just I find the whole thing a bit peculiar. And it's a shame, but I put kind of Bale and Kane in the same boat. I don't think they're any different, to be honest. One came through the academy, one didn't. But I don't think either of them care more or less about Spurs.
Well, Joe, I've got to get Leon's opinion now because I've asked James. Leon, for you, Harry Kane, where are you on him? Has your loyalty or has your support of him changed over the course of the last few months? Or again, we've got some big games to come after this international break. Tell us where you are with Harry Kane for you.
Well, look, I'm a PR guy by trade, and I think he handled that, or his team, his brother, handled that appallingly throughout the whole situation, and I think it has, in a way, dented the relationship with the fans a little bit. I was there on Thursday night, and there's a very warm reception for him. Yeah, and the reason is because he's just a phenomenal player. I mean, James, I get his point about the comparison of Winks, but I just they're on different planets in terms of ability, and at the end of the day, as football fans, as Spurs fans, we want to see players who help us win games, who help us, who bring us some happiness by getting us a good result and by playing well. So, I do think he's a fantastic player. He's a professional. He wants to do the best that he can in his career. I wouldn't have begrudged him. There you go, James can.
There you go. A lot of love coming in for James now.
A lot of love coming for James. He's a professional. I wouldn't have begrudged him. For saying he wants to win trophies. Of course he does, but look at Son, bringing it back to what our discussion was earlier. Look at Son. I think Son genuinely believes that a trophy at Spurs would mean more than a trophy at Man City, Man United, Chelsea, wherever, because it's the club that he's made his name. So I love Kane. I don't like his PR people, and I think we could be. I think he's going to have another good season because he is who he is.
Leon, he should have really given you a call, shouldn't he, at one point? It was getting sticky. You should have picked up the phone and been like, do you know what? I need a hand here. I mean, do you know what? Who knows what is going to happen with Harry Kane? As far as we know, he's here for the imminent future, whatever that may be. But we are going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners on audio. And when we return, we'll be discussing Nuno's start to the season with Tottenham and taking a few of your listener questions as we go into an international break with Tottenham Hotspur top of the Premier League. Yeah, that is right, top of the Premier League. For our listeners on YouTube, we're going to get straight into that now. Rob, after the game, Nuno was asked about Spurs being top of the league. And before I come on to that, really, I just want to actually make a point that nice moment after the final whistle. Danny Rose, Moussa Sissoko went actually a walk around the pitch to say their proper goodbyes to the Tottenham fans. Actually, it was quite a nice point to say. I want to add that in as they obviously both greet their new Watford fans as well. But back to Nuno, he was asked on the thought of Spurs being top at this stage. He says, it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't mean anything. I invite everybody, not only the players, but all our fans to not pay attention to that. Let's keep on working. We still have a long way to go and lots of aspects to improve. And I think what was also interesting as well, he was asked about Spurs' style of play. And he says, we are very far from what we want to be. We need to finalise the actions. The improvement was good. We have a long way to go. The players will get better. The routines will become habits. We are trying to achieve perfection. You can imagine how far we are from that. I mean, Robbie's saying all the right things. He's doing all the right things. He's talking all the right things. It's very hard to not like Nuno Espirito Santo right now, right?
It is. I think the only thing he didn't mention was that Arsenal are at the bottom of the league. That would have been.
If he said that, we'd give him the 5-year contract.
Nuno for president, I'm afraid, James. Exactly. If he said that.
Yeah, we'd have to upgrade you. Sorry, James.
Yeah. So I think, as most of us have said tonight, he's doing a great job so far, and he sort of probably realises the limitations that he's working with, and it's really encouraging. It's really nice to hear him say that, we're going to open up, we're going to be a bit more expansive, because I think everybody thought, well, I was definitely one who thought Watford at home. We can say the first two games 1-0, great game against City. Second game, Wolves, we were lucky to get away with a 1-0, and I thought Watford at home today, we were going to take the handbrake off a bit and go for it. And that was the sort of worrying aspect for me, was that we didn't really. There wasn't a sort of I guess that Klopp feeling at Liverpool, where teams they really get into sides at the start of a game. And I thought there was a lot of the time last season where we were very guilty of never getting out of first or second gear, and quite a lot of times going straight into reverse gear at the start. So that was the thing that was slightly worrying today. But as Nuno says, we can build on that. And actually, hey, we've got 9 points, and it's not even the end of August yet.
Yeah, do you know what I love, Rob? You said one point about him, having to deal with all these difficult situations in terms of the inflexibilities. I said if he doesn't know it now, and he will get to know it very soon in terms of this Spurs ball, what he's up against. I tell you, he's not even touched the surface yet. If he thinks this summer transfer window is tough, I tell you, my God, what has he got to come? The poor bloke. He's probably happy that it is only a 2-year deal, but listen, he'll hope it's much more than that. James, we'll come around to you next. Because again, after the game, he actually admitted that something he didn't like is that we should be more clinical. I think we have enough quality and talent for players to kill the game. If the transfer window was to end today, James, how confident do you think he would be with his squad for the rest of the rest of the year until January opens up again?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few. The right back issue is one that needs addressing. I think that's the main one. I think there are other. I mean, but I think all these transfers are based on other people. I don't think they're going to buy a right back, and if Aurier doesn't go, I don't think they're going to buy a centre midfielder. Maybe if Ndombele doesn't go, could buy a forward. I mean, Leon was talking earlier about those wide forwards, and we haven't really spoken about Brian Hill yet, and he looks a fantastic prospect. And I wouldn't. You talk about Adama Traore. I wouldn't really want to see Adama Traore taking game time away from Brian Hill. So I think that area, I think we're probably all right. I would like to see. I think Nuno would like to see that right back spot addressed in this window. Other than that, I think we could probably get by. You don't know his views on someone like Joe Rodon. If he really doesn't rate him and he's looking to loan him out, then we probably need to get another body in at centre half. Or if you buy a right back, you can play Tanganga there. I don't know, but I mean, I think it's a fair squad. I do on Rob's point. I don't know. I think what I saw on the pitch and what came out of Nuno's mouth didn't really match. So if you really wanted to play better football, then you can take one of Skip and Højbjerg off at any point. Like, there was players you could try and move that on, but maybe it's a coaching thing and he needs a certain amount of time to bring that style in and adapt and whatever. So that's fine. But I think even if it closed today, I think we've done some good business. And to be honest, we have spent money. We've spoken about Lo Celso and Ndombele, and we spent so much money on these players. If he can do with them what he's done already with Sanchez and Dyer, then maybe we don't need any more players potentially.
Yeah. Leon, we've obviously given a lot of praise for Nuno Espirito Santo so far, and rightly so. I think he's made a good start to the season. As I said, some Spurs fans feel at the moment they're just not quite feeling him. One here, this is from Vishnu at uni_tweet, who says, where is the free-flowing attacking football which we was promised? Does this only come up when we lose?
It comes up more prominently when we lose, of course it does, but we need to be realistic in the sense that we were so poor last season. There was such a lack of direction, and there was not only were we playing awfully, we were getting awful results as well. So to go from that to suddenly this swashbuckling, lovely football that we all want isn't going to happen overnight. And let's get these results. Let's let the players trust Nuno and build that understanding between them and him. And then over time, I do think he will get to that point where actually, we are playing in a more traditionally Spurs way, which we all want. Of course we do. And I think, Nuno was brought in supposedly because he can adjust his style and his philosophy. He's not wedded to this one system. And I think that, the players are there. If you look at the squad, the players are there to really take on an attacking mindset, an attacking way of play. So yeah, I'm all here for him. He's got the bald head, which is a big plus, and he dresses exceptionally well. I like the bomber jacket, and he says the right thing. So yeah. I'm optimistic. I really like the guy. I really hope he gets a good crack at the whip.
Joe, it's as I said at the start of the show, it's very hard to not warm to him. And I think maybe because we've had someone, it feels like the complete polar opposite not too long ago. When you do go from that to such a transformation, it does feel like, you've got the best thing since sliced bread, right? But I mean, it is very, very early days, of course. And point on the screen there says fans are so fickle, free flowing football. Where did that get us in the past? It's a good point, but I think James, you made a very good point before that. For you as a Spurs fan, you could go and support anybody. It is for you about a type of brand of football, and I completely understand that. Growing up watching Tottenham for me was always about Ginola, and it was all about players that had flair, that would take players on, and I do get that. And I think it's always the case, guys, as it's trying to find the balance between the two, where you can have the nice football and you can get results. And if we can do that, then obviously we're all happy, right? We're all happy. We saw Nuno after the game comment on the fact that Romero and Lo Celso were potentially going on international duties. He says, we're trying to anticipate the damage. We are working on that. We cannot stop it, but we can try and find the best way so they can return and we can get them as sooner rather than later. We know both those players have now travelled. We know Davinson Sanchez has travelled as well, therefore meaning that all those guys can actually be massive doubts. They can actually potentially miss that game after the international break against Crystal Palace. It's one to keep an eye on. But we're going to finish on 3 listener questions each to you guys, and then a prediction for what Nuno is going to be doing with Tottenham for the rest of the season. So, Rob, we've got a question here from Michael Green, who says, if we were to bring Lo Celso into the midfield to make it a bit more progressive, who would you take out from the current starters in that midfield?
Well, I think it would have to be, it's got to be Skip, sadly. And I think that sort of undermines what Nuno seems to be trying to do at the moment. So, yeah, that would be the short answer. If I could just go back.
Please
I know it's ancient history, but free-flowing football 60 years ago plus won us the double.
Of course.
So that's where free-flowing football can get you. So, yeah. But back to the Lo Celso thing, I think actually, Leon, you said earlier that him and Ndombele have been, I don't know, we've yet to see the best out of them. And I think that's very true. And we've definitely seen great flashes from Lo Celso. But whether it's worth destabilising that midfield, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay.
That's the simple answer.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether he gets in the side. That's the problem.
Again, it's an interesting point. Okay, let's go next to you, James. This is from Glenn Thomas, who says, who is there around or who could come in and do that creative job we need? I think, I'll tell you what, I'll make it more hypothetical for you, James. We let Ndombele go. He's gone. Okay, he's gone either on loan or he's left the club on a perm. Out there, we've been linked with the likes of, we haven't been linked with this name as far as I'm aware, but Paredes, Awa, Brandt, Damsgaard. Tell us, what do you think for you, James? If I had to bring a central midfielder in or a creative midfielder in, who could do that job for us?
There's nothing like putting me on the spot, is there? I'm suddenly Spurs' chief scout. Christ.
Steve Hitchin, watch your back.
You've got the haircut.
Or Paratici, watch your back.
Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, none of those players you listed are as good as Tanguy and Ndombele for a start. I think that's the problem. We bought Tanguy and Ndombele, I think, the season after we got to the Champions League final or a little bit off. Like that's the level of player he is, right? And he's obviously got these other, whatever the other issues are. But we are, in my opinion, much better off trying to get him functioning than we are going after any of these other players. Damsgaard is a great talent. I'm not sure he's a 10. He's a runner. I think he can play wide. I'm not convinced particularly. There's no I think where we are in our evolution as a club and under Nuno in the Conference League, we're not going to attract Champions League players. Obviously, we're not going to attract. We might attract Europa League level players. I don't think that improves us particularly. I think Bryan Hill playing as an 8 or playing as a kind of in a similar role to Dele, where he shuttles between a 3 and then playing as a 10. I think that's better. I think I'd rather focus on that. So I think I'm not particularly. I can't make sense. I mean, actually, So on that, So when you talk about it's a balance between the football and the winning, for me, it's not. The football, as long as it's coming eventually, like this season, is fine. That's non-negotiable. I don't pay my money to watch us win. I pay my money to go with my mates and my family and be entertained. And enjoy it. And I honestly, I've been supporting him for 35 years, and I've seen us won odds and sods, and I'm completely fine with that. And I'm happy. I'd be honestly not that bothered if we didn't win another trophy for the rest of my life. It would be brilliant, but it would be the cherry on the cake. But the football has to be exciting. We have to be fun. And that's non-negotiable.
But James, can I ask? Am I doing this podcast for the next 40 years and not seeing one trophy? Is that what I've tied?
Yes, and you'll have hair like us three into the bargain.
Believe me, it's coming. It's coming.
And that's what it's about, right? And it all ties together, because when you talk about Son and Kane going, Kane is if he went to City and won the league, he's part of their dream, not ours. Son wants to win something you have to win it the right way. You can't if we won it under Mourinho, it would have been Mourinho's way, not the Spurs way, and there's no point doing it. And just finally, Klopp finished 8th in his first season, so I think we just need to relax, have a little bit, and it will come. Everything's good so far. I think there is more pressing. It's not crazy, but there's more than there was under Mourinho.
Yeah,
and I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's funny, the comment of pressing under Mourinho. I mean, I think when we are, wouldn't it? If a player was to charge 5 yards, you think, God, there we go, we're seeing it. Leon, coming around to you. Final question of the listeners that we've had here. So thank you so much. I think you had over 50 questions this week, so thank you ever so much. Obviously, we try and breed a selection out every single week. And this is from Ben Taylor. Good question this as well. He says, who has been the most improved player under Nuno so far? Great question, Leon. What do you reckon?
I think it's fairly obviously Davinson Sanchez. I think he's been a transformed player under Nuno, and I know that he had a good international summer with Colombia in the Copa America and did well, and sort of grew into this sort of leadership role for his country, and it's sort of translating now at club level. I think he's been a wonderful improvement on last season. I mean, he was a bit of that moment where you saw his name in the lineup and you just think, oh, what mistakes he got in him today, or which players are going to bully him around today. Haven't seen that at all, and he's been up against some pretty good front lines so far. So I think Davinson Sanchez has been by far and away the most improved player, as has Dyer. I thought the two of them as a pairing have been good. But yeah, for me, I can't really look beyond those two, or beyond Sanchez in particular.
Okay, guys, final one from me to finish off. Rob, we're going to fast forward to the end of the season. Where are Spurs finished, and what have we got at the end of it under Nuno? If Nuno's here firstly, is Nuno going to be here for the end of the season, Rob? I'm only asking because it's Tottenham. You never know what's going to happen. But will Nuno be here? If he is, what have we ended the season with, Rob?
I think the table will be exactly the same as it is now, actually. Oh. No, I'm joking.
Can I just confirm, is it exactly the same? Because if it is,
exactly.
It's going to be one hell of a show to finish. I tell you, my God,
exactly,
the end of the season.
No, I think he's obviously, we've established he was nowhere near our first choice. And I think he was brought in with the knowledge that the worst he can get, the best, he got Wolves to 7th twice, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I think it will definitely be a top 6, possibly squeaking into the top 4.
Out of interest, I'm going to ask you a follow-up on that. Sorry. If we were to get into the top 4, who are we replacing in that top 4 for you?
It'll be Cristiano Ronaldo's Manchester United.
Wow, God.
I think Ronaldo might be another Bale. He might be Bale for this season.
Do you know what's funny, United? I've said this before, that for me, while Solskjaer's there, I don't deem them as a threat. I've always said that. They might win a cup, but I don't think they've got the sustainability or consistency to win a league. while Solskjaer's there. So yeah, who cares? Ronaldo's back. Who cares? James, let's come around to you next. Same question to you. Where do you think Spurs are going to finish at the end of the season? And will Nuno hopefully see the season out?
I hope he does. Yeah, I agree with everything Rob said. I think from 4th to 6th is completely up for grabs. Yeah, I'm not sure about Liverpool, but I think we could squeak 4th. I think we're going to win the Conference League just because that seems like a thing that we might do.
Is that also beating Marino in the final, James, as well? Does that also involve that?
And David Sanchez being man of the match. Yes,
I love that.
And also I think I can see that. I also think that I love the comment "winning is everything" from someone who's obviously subscribed to the Last Word on Spurs. It's like, if you know anything about the history of this club and you think winning is everything, I'm sorry, mate. I hate to break this to you. You're in the wrong place.
And I think you'll be unsubscribed by the end of the season, or probably by March.
Go and support Chelsea or Man City. It'll be fine. You'll win everything. It'll be great. But if you're here, we need to be here for more. Otherwise,
yeah,
Sorry,
Leon,
for audio, that was me pointing on my bald head.
Yeah, Leon, let's close the show with you on this question as well. End of the season, what are we dishing out, Leon? What have we achieved under Nuno?
I reckon we sneak into 4th place by a point on the last day of the season, and I agree. I think it will be Man United, depending on what sort of Ronaldo that they end up getting. But yeah, I reckon we could get 4th. Optimistic me says we could get 4th, and it's looking good. I think we'll win the Conference League. I think we could even win a domestic cup, of which I would rather. And I think if we do get into the Champions League, the bigger picture is I think the wheels start falling into place for ENIC to get the club sold potentially. I think the time is there for that. But I think they'll wait until we're in the Champions League. So fingers crossed that happens as well.
Yeah, I think it's a cracking point on the screen there from Tino Tender, who says, we were top in November under Jose. The big club test for Nuno will be playing in 4 competitions. I mean, expected to do well in all of them with this squad. And we're hoping, like I say, between now and the end of this summer transfer window, there's more to do. But I can't believe you. I mean, guys, we're gonna have you guys back on throughout the season. So I will be reminding you of this when you're next on. And if I say the prediction is still the same, if the league is still the same, my God, I think I'll be kissing you all over. I'll be honest, if it's still the same after this. But my God, I tell you. Rob, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. And it's been great having you back on.
Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. James, always great. I'm hoping for you, James, that we're going to see this expansive brand of football. And I trust that by the time we next have you on, the bomber jacket for Nuno will be on as well.
Yeah, I've been trying to find one, but Hugo Boss has sold out by the looks of it.
I tell you what, yeah. They've all got to the Spurs place. That's what it is at the moment. It's all the catalogue, I tell you. Leon, always a pleasure. I still can't believe Kane didn't make that call, to be honest, if you're halfway through the summer. But what's going on? I don't know.
I'd have done it for free, but I'd have told him to stay.
I bet you would have done.
Probably wouldn't have been much good. But no, pleasure, Ricky. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely fine. Well, guys, I say, for our listeners on YouTube, I think there's been over 500 of you watching this live. So thank you ever so much for all the comments. I say all the kind words. Really, really appreciate it. For our listeners on audio, thank you as always. We're back with a summer transfer deadline day eve special tomorrow. Got the wonderful Michael Bridge from Sky Sports joining us. But as always, guys, most importantly, Tottenham Hotspur go into the international break top of the Premier League. Yes, top. Can we stay there? Can Arsenal stay bottom? We most certainly hope so. For now, keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on, you Spurs.